Right. So we did it the other time. How we can, I'm just going to open our portal environment. I want to plead with us, please. There are quite a number of resource groups here that some of us created and we forgot to delete them. Please delete your resource groups and make sure they are deleted. Number of us created some resource groups and it doesn't look like we're still using them. So please, if you're no longer using the resource groups, kindly delete. All right. So what we are going to do today, I'm going to show us again. I did it last week, but it looks like we're a bit fast. So we are going to do it again. This time around, we're going to use our ARM templates. We're going to create a web app and an app service plan, right? And then we're going to deploy that app service plan. And then on top of that, we are going to deploy an application. All right, we're going to deploy an application inside of that. So that's creating something like this. Do we need to go over the templates?
Yes.
Who is saying yes?
It is me. Oh. The thing is, I'm always just like I think in this case, I rarely finish classes. Sometimes I just put it on and I have to leave because I work nights. So
yeah, and you're also working nights today.
Yeah, yes. So in about 30 to 30 minutes max, I should be getting ready. So I'm always depending on
So me and
videos.
you are having same case, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you were partners in crime. All right.
I'm not impressed.
All right. So what I'll encourage you to do is reach out to other members of the class, right? Again, why we are building a community. So I encourage you to speak to people here. All right. I think it will also help you. Okay. So that's when you are available, reach out to somebody. You can reach out to me, but reach out to some persons here who will be willing to help. Again, if you do something, if you teach, they say when you teach, you learn twice. All right. So just feel free to reach out to somebody who can say, help me, walk me through in this thing. And then I know almost everybody here will be willing to assist you. All right. So before your benefit, we're going to go over ARM template again. But also watch the videos previously, the previous videos, so that you can get it more. Now, yeah, so I'm not going to go so I may miss some things, but for the setup, in case you're not aware, for the setup, you need to download ARM. So it's Azure Resource Manager. So it's called an extension. So this is the extension tab on the Visual Studio, right? On Visual Studio Code, rather. So this is the extension tab. So when you hover over it, you see extensions, right? So you need to download this tool called ARM. So if you type ARM or Azure Resource Manager, this tool is going to come up and you'll see it has quite a number of downloads. It has over 1 point something downloads, million downloads. So you know that is it. You can also download the ARM template visualizer if you want. it's a tool that helps you to visualize what you want. You can actually install it. And yeah, that's it. There's also this one viewer. Just whichever one you feel more comfortable, I can also install them. I can uninstall this one back, use the other one. Because this one have 500,000 downloads. So I think it's more. So, but this one, once you download that, how you know you downloaded it somehow is when you open your this thing to work, you'll notice that you have the ARM template outline here at the bottom. So you see that outline. Now, the template file uses what we call template and parameters. So you use the template file to create the resources you're trying to deploy. The resources are like things like virtual machines, storage, those things you create on Azure Portal, right? Networking, everything within the environment that you can create within your subscription is a resource. So you use the template to store that. Again, it mustn't necessarily be named template. You can give it any name of your choice, but it must end with JSON. So it must be .json. Why? Because the language ARM, Azure Resource Manager, is actually a JavaScript representation of the resource you create. So every resource you create, let me go to our subscription. I'm just doing this for those persons who missed that. I'm just trying to see if we have resources in this account. So I'll take any resource that is here and then shoot by the number of resources. You guys are running our money. Okay, so let me pick one resource. Say this is a web app, right? Let me open this web app and show you something. So this is a web app. Now this web app is now this thing is running, but in Microsoft, and this thing is represented in what we call JSON. JSON is JavaScript object notation. So if I click JSON view on the side, you see, so this is the representation of this particular web app. I can see the name of the web app. I can see if I search for name, for instance, if I do a search for name, I can see the name of the web app. You can see it here, it's CleanX app. All right, there are 22 of that here, but you can see the name here. So this is the name. You can see it here. Is the type of microservice.website, is the kind app, location is this, display name is this. Now, this thing is kept in a JSON format. So ARM template is now how you can use this thing, all right, to how you can create something like this, okay? And then when you try to hit deploy, right, this thing can actually create this exact thing for you without you having to come to the portal to start going through create and all of that. Then again, another thing I want to also show you, on every resource, if you scroll down on every resource, you will see where you have export template. If I click on it, I'm going to show you something quickly. You'll see it. Every resource also has that template. So you see the parameters and then the resources. You guys get it? So in those days when I was still learning, I was telling us something that learning ARM took me 3 years to learn because then there were not quite a number of, like this ARM tool on VS Code wasn't existing back then. So you just have to learn everything. And it was a very, very big struggle, at least for me. So one of the things I used to do those days, I'll come here and click export template and then walk backwards. So I'll download this thing and then start using it to modify what I want to create until I learned it. But now I'm going to show you how to now instead of doing reverse engineering, we can now create it and then use it to set up that. So what I'm actually saying in essence is that this web app we are seeing here, this CleanX app, is actually, so this is the whole app. If we delete this thing, we'll delete this app. All right. So this is what is referred to as infrastructure as code. So it's like managing your infrastructure as though it's code. So meaning that the infrastructure is started as code. So if I'm able to learn how to write that code, then I can create infrastructure, right? That's what it means. So we now say, okay, so how do we do that? I gave us how to use the code snippets. I mean, the trainer that trained, I was not the one that took this course. So the person that took us, that was Sammy. He did a very great job that day. And he was able to walk us through how to go about this. So if you create, so the first thing you need to do is you create your template file. I mean, your template.json. It can be anything, right? But I like giving names that are descriptive. So if you use this, what you want to do is you put ARM. Now, if you type ARM, once you have downloaded that extension, once you do ARM, it pops up and you save the file as .json, right? It comes up, it gives you this thing, what we call IntelliSense. Now, if you look at the first one, I just typed ARM, it brought all this up. Now, if you look at the first one, this is how it's going to look on the right. If you go to the second one, this is how it's going to look on the left, on the right-hand side. You get it? So if I select ARM AKS cluster, this is what is going to give me, something like this on the right. So, oh, wow, this is beautiful, because if I want to create a Kubernetes cluster, so I don't even need to go and learn it. This is the sample code for me here on the right. So, but we want to create a template first. So what I need to do first of all is I just put this first one, ARM, and I hit enter. The moment you hit enter, it populates these things for you. Now, I'm going to show you another thing. So if you go down to the bottom now where you have ARM here, template, if I click, you notice that it has initialized those things for me. What are they? Let's count them. Output, resources, variables, parameters, content, version, and schema. If you look here, you notice that's what you have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6 of them, right? Now, what is most important in this thing, apart from the schema, which is the most important, because if you remove it, this is what tells Azure that I'm going to be talking with you using this API, right? It goes and selects this one and then uses it to talk to it. All right. So it's very important. Don't tamper with it. Don't play around it. And then this is the version it's using. But what is most important here, apart outside of this, is the resource file. And if you look at the resource, you know that the other ones uses curly braces. So you see curly braces around there, but the resource uses square brackets. Why is that? It's telling you that it's expecting an array, meaning that I can use that to create multiple resources. I can deploy multiple resources inside of here. So what that means is that if I scroll down, if you decide to even use the viewer, which is this one on your left-hand side, if I click the plus sign, I can see deploy the same thing. So if I want to deploy a storage account, it's more or less clicking it. So I don't even need to go and learn the code that I was using out there. So if you click the plus sign, for instance, say I want to add a storage account inside the resources, because those are resources in Azure. So if I click, okay, say virtual machine. If I put a virtual machine, for instance, let's see. So are you seeing, is it a Windows virtual machine or Ubuntu virtual machine? So if I say I want an Ubuntu virtual machine, are you seeing it has generated everything I need for that? So the only thing I now need to do is I now modify it. You see, it has added the subnets, It has added, you need the disk, right? You need the compute, you need the network interface, you need the network profile, you need the storage profile, you need the OS disk, because the operating system must run on a disk, right? And then it creates all those things for you. Now, if you go and look at the resource, just like when you're creating a virtual machine from the portal, right? The moment you click create a virtual machine, you notice it creates a number of things. So that's everything you have here just by clicking on add virtual machine, right? So if I remove that, let's assume I don't want that. Now, if I want to also do that from code, I can still do ARM. If I do ARM, right? Now, hyphen, right? Let me see if I see VM. So you can see VM. So I select Ubuntu. I scroll down to Ubuntu. You see on the right-hand side, it has given me a snippet how the code will look like. And then if I click enter, it does the same thing for me. On the left-hand side, I can also validate. It's the same thing. So that's how you use your manipulate a resource, excuse me, as though it was code. So you do Z. So it's not very difficult, right? Is it difficult, guys? I need feedback now.
We practice it and see.
No, first of all, answer the question. You are being political now. Is it difficult?
Somehow.
How? What is difficult there? Let me know which side. What is making it look?
It's not that difficult. I think I just need to settle down with it and digest it.
Yeah. So watch the video we did. A full weekend was dedicated for this, actually, where we went through it and then you practice. But it's actually very, very distinct. It won't hurt, right? So, and then you can reach out to myself or any other person. All right. Even for those of us who were in the class, is it something we are not aware of? Is it something strange?
No.
All right. So I know all of us should be able to comfortably, like if I get a project where I say, okay, please, I need to create X and Y and Z resources. Can somebody do that? I can get somebody on the call to do that with me, or somebody here can even do that on your own. See, so, all right. So let's proceed. So the next thing I say I want to do is for this our own. I want to, because the goal of what I want to do today is to show us how we can create this thing and inject it into a pipeline and deploy a code to it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do ARM. I want to deploy a web app. So the first thing I need is I need an app service plan, which is an app. So this is app service plan. I need an app service plan. And then I also need what do you call it? A web app, because remember a web app runs on top of an app service plan. So I'm going to deploy a web app. So web app, so it's web app. And then that's that. I go there, put comma, to make sure that that error is removed. So here I have everything, but I don't like the name web app 1. I want to be able to give it my own name. That's number one. Secondly, I want to be able to also reuse this thing, right? So how do I do that? So we introduced another concept, which is why this parameters is here. Sorry?
I said you parameterize it.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, we parameterize it exactly. So what we want to do is we now want to say, okay, instead of us calling this thing web app 1, we are going to create a parameter that we hold the name. Well, so whatever we call that parameter, or whatever whoever is going to use this thing calls it. Let's assume you want to create something you are a consultant, you want to create something that a company can reuse over and over again. So you can just create something like this so that whatever they call it, you just pass the name of that thing, right? So, so here I'll go to parameters now, and then I create a parameter. So how to do that? If you do ARM, and then you do param, just do parameter, right? See, it has come with the first one, ARM parameter. If you look to the right, it gives you what is that should look like. So I create a first parameter. So what's the first parameter? I'm going to say I want to replace this web app once. So the first parameter, I can call it name of web app, right? And then here, instead of calling this, and then the type is a string is just a collection of characters together. That's what a string is. An integer is just a whole number. A decimal is something that has points and then other numbers aside it. So these are what we call types, types. So string is what it is. Then metadata. So the only metadata we're interested in is the description. But for now, I don't even want to have the metadata, just to keep this thing very simple and slim. So I'm going to clear off that. And here, so instead of calling this thing web app 1 now, because this thing means that it's hard coded, and I want to be able to inject my own name at runtime. So what we do is that we call this thing. So we now define that parameter, say parameter, and then you see the name there, name of web app. So that's all. So you see that line has gone. It's saying that the name of web app. So whatever I call name of web app is what this thing will be here. So that means anywhere I see web app 1 now, I go and replace it with this value. All right, so you see here the display name is web app 1, just like we were seeing on the portal that the name of that app, you can see display name, for instance. You see the display name, right? You see the name here is parameters this, right? And then the display name is this. So same thing like that. I want to make sure that the parameter is what is passed in here. So I go back to my code, and then anywhere I see web app 1, I just replace that with that parameter, and then it makes my job easy for me. All right. So then the next thing now is I still have another hard-coded value here, which is the app service plan. Now, all of this thing is just going back to infrastructure as code. I mean, to what we have learned, platform as a service, that a web app must run on top of an app service plan. If you remember that, then we need to name our app service plan. But our app service plan came out with a name, app service plan 1. That's what we want to give it our own name. So meaning I'll go and create another parameter that I will use to hold the name of my app service plan. So I do ARM again, hyphen param, and then it comes up, and then it's asking me parameter 1 again. So I want to call it name of app service plan, ASP. And then the type is string again. I'm going to clear off this thing to make it simple so that it doesn't look, I don't need the metadata. So what I'm going to do is that app service plan here, I'm also going to replace it as parameter. So I put square bracket first, and then the parameter, put this, and then you see IntelliSense is already asking me, is the name of a service plan? I say, yes, that's what I want. So I go there, and then I copy that entire value. Even though when we write code, we don't copy. So, but don't say, I taught you how to copy. Don't copy when you are doing it, please. So I do this, I do this. I'm not copying it. In case you are saying I'm copying it, your screen is bad. Okay. Okay, so here I'm going to do this. Then this one here. Where I see that app service plan. Remove it, close it with this. So yeah, so we are all done now. So it looks good. So so what will happen is whatever thing I call this parameter is what it will pass into here. All right. So, and then if you look at this thing now, how do you know what and what? Because these are important fields. Let's assume, because remember, when you use the default, that just like we use here, when you use the default, it gives you the default values, right? But this is not all this, like for instance, the app service plan. Let's assume we want to create a standard or a P1V1. How do you get the actual one, and then how many capacity? Or if there are some extra fields. Now, if you go to ARM templates, Azure, if you open it, you can see the entire documentation for that here. And then you go to references, go to template reference, you can see all the resources on Azure. You can see all of them here. So if I search for app service plan, for instance, let's see if it's come up. It's actually called server farm. So let me see if it's come up. Server farm. Yeah. So you see, so you see the implementation of the type. Now, the first thing is I want to show you of this thing is called the API value. If I go back to that app, I know we didn't talk about it that day, but let me show you. The first thing that app has after the name, the type, is the API version. Like this app service is using 2018-0201. So if you are using the templates, you need to make sure you check for that template version and then switch. Of course, you can see now that even this API version that this one is giving us is wrong, right? But it will still work. So if you want to use any of them, you can now find which one. For instance, if I want to use this latest one, I can use it. Let me go to maybe the one on 2021-01-15. And if I open that, you see all the changes that they have inside that. And then blah, 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 blah. Sites is web app. So these are all the things they have. And then if I open, this is not giving me what I want exactly. Let's see. I need the code itself. So it's saying this was added. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for like the server farm, for instance. I'm looking for everything that makes up. So this is the complete, like for web app, this is web app, for instance. This is the complete code. This is the complete code, actually. You see the name, it's telling you now name is a string, the location is a string. So like, for instance, it means that I can actually come here and add location. You see there's location, but this one is using the location of the resource group, which I don't have a problem with that. But you see location is a string. It has kind, it has other parameters that you might need in the future. So I'm just showing you this to let you know that there are so many things. And that is why when you look at the one on the portal here, it's complete. Even though you see some things here as false, some true, some false, some this, it's only this one we are generating automatically is coming out with the minimum required, right? But there's a lot of them. So in case you're doing a project where you need to get some values and add them in code, please make sure that you look at what you're doing, for instance, and get that. For instance, if I want to deploy now, if I ask you, is this web app going to be Linux web apps can be deployed on Windows and Linux, right? Are we all aware of that? Hello? Let me slow down. It's like I've been talking too much. Where's everybody?
Hello?
Yeah.
We are here. We are here.
We are here.
You know your web apps can be deployed on Windows or Linux, right?
Okay.
Did you say okay?
Yes, sir.
If you want to create a web app, wouldn't they ask you where do you want to create it?
We'll be asked.
Let's assume, let me try and see if I want to, let me show you. So that person that said okay now is the person I'm addressing.
No, Chris.
Yeah.
You're right. The okay I mean does not mean
Okay. Okay. But I'm just trying to, okay, it's fine. I understand. So but you see what I'm saying now. So the operating system, it asks you to select whether it's Linux or Windows. All right. All right. All right. So, but you see here, how do you know whether it's Linux or Windows? So are you seeing it's not showing you here? So it means that if you create this one, what is it going to default to? Who can guess?
Windows.
Windows, exactly. So it's going to deploy Windows because I don't know what the default, but the default is Windows. So if you create it from code, but let's assume you want to create it and specify that it should be a Linux app. Do you understand? How do you do that? This is why you need something like this. Let's assume you want to select Windows. I mean Linux. You don't want it to be this thing. So what you do is that's where you need something like this. You can say, okay, how do I specify my web app to be a what? To be a Linux. So this is the value to do that Linux FX version. Do you understand? So you just take this thing here and copy it and then put it there and then put your value. Right? So that's.
Can you put it and let's see? Can you put it and let's see, sir?
I should let's okay, it's fine.
okay. If you want to put that value, is it through parameter too, or you just
No, you go and adjust the resource.
Adjust it.
Like I said, you remember you're looking at this complete payload, right? So you find out where does it fall under and then deploy that. All right. So to put that one, let me get it, server found. Please go on mute, please.
That's why I said you should not tell her not to come. She should come if it's 10.
Kenna, can you mute this young man?
Sorry.
All right. And then again, if you want to know what all those things, so you don't just take my word for it. If you want to know what all those things mean, you can read the entire thing here, right? You see all the descriptions of all those terms, right? For instance, the name, if you scroll down, what is the name? You see here, the resource name is a string, and then you see the limit of the characters, you see the location and all those things. Kind here, the kind of resource. And then previously we used to have an example. Okay, so these are quick start templates. For instance, this is an example of, so this template is to be used with Azure App Service Quick Start template. So if you click on this, so this is that quick start somebody was asking me. If you open it, it takes you to GitHub, and then you can actually look at the parameters and then look at the deploy.json. So if I open that, for instance, open that, so this gives me a sample of what I'm actually looking at deploying. And If you want to make it a Linux type, you see, you select a kind, Linux, and then go and put it there, just for instance. Right, so you see, where does it fall under? It falls under, so you can put it under maybe after SKU, but wherever you put it doesn't matter, but I'm just going to use it like you did here. So after SKU, kind equals to Linux. So if I go back to my code, SKU, I'll put here, and then put kind Linux, and then put comma. So if I deploy this web app, it's going to deploy an F1, that is a Linux app for me, right? So that's that. But I'm not going to deploy a Linux one because I want to deploy a .NET application to this app, and I want it to run on Windows. So, but if I wanted a Linux web app, I'll deploy this. And again, if I want to create two web app, for instance, do I do that? Do I create two web app? One Linux, one Windows. Do we want us to try that? But I don't want to make it overly complex.
No, let's do it. I think it should be fine.
Huh?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see.
Let's do that. All right. So what I'm going to do, because I want to deploy the application into the, but I think I will do that because I want to also show you how you can use one template, all right, to actually deploy two or more apps.
Resources. Okay.
Yes, or more resources. Yeah. You know, using one template file, but you use it with multiple parameter files. So what it means now, because I want one Linux and one Windows, right? It means I cannot hard code this thing as Linux, right? What do I do?
I think you need to also copy another kind that is window.
So that means I'll have, where will I now put that one?
I think we need to open another, we will go to do another ARM.
Why will you want to do another ARM? Then why did you learn parameters? What's the essence of parameters? What's the concept of parameter? Parameter is so that
just
I
to make it
what I want. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So and so I will now, what I will now do, I'll create another parameter to hold the kind. Do you understand? So that's the parameter must be fixed to one thing. For instance, I can decide to say the location of my app. I can decide to create it as a parameter and pass it as a parameter. So meaning I'm asking the user, you determine where you want it to be. Do you get? That's the essence. You can parameterize almost anything, right? Almost anything. So we're going to create the parameter to hold whether it's Linux or Windows. So I will add another parameter. I'll do ARM param, and then you can say OS type, right? And then here, I'm going to give it a description. So I'm going to use so that users can know what it means. Specify if you want. Okay, you can say specify either Linux or Windows, right? So that the person knows what it is. So here I'm going to remove Linux and use what? Parameter. And then which one am I going to use? OS type. So that when somebody is deploying this thing, he will see the option to select whether it's Windows or this. All right, so let's try that. And then the next thing I want to do is I'm going to save this guy actually. Okay, and let me. So I have my template ready, and then let me go and those three parameters we have here. So I'm going to create a parameter file. So for those of us who are new, so there's another file called the parameter file. If you go back to that, if we go back to that web app that we were actually looking at a while ago, which is one of this one. This one was what we had. If you scroll down back to that export template and you look at the template, you're going to notice a parameters file. So everything that was parameterized, you will see the parameters here. So we are creating another file. Now, the essence of creating a parameter file is so that you can, it's two ways. You can now, that's where you change the values. All right, you pass in the parameters. So I'm going to rename this thing actually now as the first one is called parameter 1. So sorry, I'm going to rename this file. I'll say parameter 1, right? So I can name one Windows. I want to show you people how you can create, multiple items using one template. So I'm going to name the second one parameter 2, parameter 2.json. All right. So I go to the parameter 1 file. I type ARM P. Once you do ARM P, the first option is what you need. If you look at it, it's Azure Resource Manager parameters template. If you look at it on the right. So I select it. So this is the template I want. Now, you see it's limited. This one has just the schema, the content version, and then the parameters. Now, I want, how many parameters do I have here? So this one is not going to be, it's like an abstraction on my template. So whatever number of parameters I have here is what I'm going to create there. So I have 3 parameters here. So I go to that one, and then I just create, if I do param, if you just type only P, you can just see it's a new parameter value. If I click enter, it asks me parameter 1, what is the value? So I'm going to select from here, the first parameter I have from here is name of web app, right? So I'm going to copy it and then take it there and say, okay, the first parameter I have is name of web app. Now, that's number 1. I also have another parameter, so I will do P, get that parameter, go there, get the name of that, what that parameter is, and then copy it, go back to that template, and then paste that here. We're going to give it the value shortly. Let's just fill all of them here. Do parameter, and then go back there, and there's actually a shortcut to do that from here, where you can copy, the right click on this thing, and then it creates the parameter, but that's maybe for another day. So I copy the third parameter, OS type, and because imagine I have 100 parameters, you won't expect I'm copying this one after the other. So this is everything I want. I'm going to copy this thing, and because it's going to be the same thing with the parameter 2, almost the same thing, I'll just copy and paste. Now let's go and name parameter 1. So parameter 1, let's say the name of the app will be first web app. Let's call this one Chemi. And then the name of the app is Chemistry. SP. App service plan. And then what's the OS type? So let's make Chemi's own Linux, right? So what we're saying is that the OS type, so we're saying create an app, and then when it gets to, is asking for what type is it. Remember, we have created a parameter to pass this thing. So what it's going to do is going to say for this Chemi own, I'm going to make it a Linux web app service plan, right? And then for the second one, the name, so what's the name of the web app? We're going to call it Olude, because those are the 2 people, web app test, right? And then we are naming the values, then the name of app service plan, ASP201. And then what's the type, OS type? This one is going to be what? Windows, right? So I'm going to, so I have one template, I have two parameter files. So meaning that I'm going to use those two templates to create, these two parameters to create two different types of apps and two app service plans. So let's watch that in action. But again, like I said, I want to also deploy. I already created a project here, a .NET project inside of this place that I'm going to deploy a code. I want to show us the power of CI/CD pipeline and then adding IAC on top of that so that we create our infrastructure and then deploy a code at the same time to it. So I'll save this. I'll save this. I'll save this. So let's open terminal now and get ready for work. So let's do git status to check what and what has changed. And then you see I've added 2 new files, and then I've modified these other ones, editing existing. And then, so I'm going to do git add that. And then if I check status again, I should have 3 new things. I renamed this to this, which is yes, what I did. I'm going to clear my screen and then do its commit. Say added. He added new parameter 5. And then I do that, and then I do a git push. I already initialized this repository. So let's go now to Azure DevOps, right? Because that's where this code is living in. So it's Azure, it's dev.azure.com, dev.azure.com. So this is where we are. So Coils Web. And then if I go to, I think that thing was living inside here, I guess. So let's check the repos. We have, is it on course cohort? What's the name of that thing? It's not this one. Okay. What's the name of that project? Where is it GitHub is going to? Let's check. Branching strategy. Okay, yeah. So this is where it's going to. Right? Are we sure? Okay, let's check. Let's check. Let's go to October. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So the name here is actually October. That's very funny. But you can see IAC. You can see it just now. So yeah. So this is the project. You can see we have parameter 1, parameter 2. So you can see all those things we changed. So parameter 2 is the Windows app where we are going to deploy it. Then we also have the other one, parameter 1, which is the other one we want to create. Now, what we are saying, the goal of today actually is to set up a CI/CD pipeline, right? And then that pipeline is now going to deploy the code here. The focus is so in case you've not been following, please start following now. The focus, what we want to do today is, this is the code we want to deploy. So this is a .NET C# code we want to deploy. Now, but we don't want to deploy the code to, we currently have 3 app services running, right? We currently have these 3 app services running, but we don't want to, I'm going to delete all 3. Can I delete them? Guys that have this running, is it okay? They've left me.
Those
don't
I
need you
don't know
now.
there.
I didn't hear anything now. Can I delete it? The people that have it, we are all keeping quiet now.
I'm not the owner.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not the owner.
Don't delete it.
I should not delete it.
Yeah.
Okay, I will not delete it. Okay, because the owners are not talking. But we are going to leave it, and but just know that it's only 3 apps that we have here now. So you don't say, Chris, you did Ojoro. Sorry, what's the English word for Ojoro? All right. So we have 3 apps.
Mago.
Mago. Bias.
So we have 3 apps. So we're going to create 2 more, and then how many app service plans? So we also check that. Because those are the things we are going to see now. Let me go back here. I'm believing this person did the right thing. It's Vanessa. Vanessa is the one that created this thing. All right. So the name of his web app is Host. All right. So his app service plan is Host. So let me see how many app service plans we have here. We have 2 app service plans. One is Host, and then October. And okay, so it's fine. So 2 app service plan. Okay, let me be sure. App service plan. So we have K3, we have app, this one, we have another one called Host, and then we have another one called this. Okay, good. All right, so 3 app service plans. So I'm going to create, this one doesn't have any app running. So okay. So we are going to create our pipeline using this, and then this pipeline is going to set up our infrastructure. That's what I want to show you, that you can use pipeline to deploy your infrastructure, and then it will set up, it will spin up that resource you actually created, and maybe in a more advanced setting, you can also do this same thing with Terraform. You can do it with Bicep, and this can spin up a resource for you. That's the essence of infrastructure as code. So back to our Azure DevOps. So we want to deploy this web project, this application, everything you have here, into this one of this web app we are creating. We're going to deploy it into the Windows app, this one here, into the parameters too. So let's get cracking. Any questions? Okay, so let's go create a new pipeline. So I say new pipeline. Let's use Classic, since that's where we'll be using. So I'll use Classic. And where is your code? My code is in repos. So which of the code is October? What branch? I want to use the main branch because that's what has my code. And then I click continue. And then what app is that? I think that app is ASP.NET. So let's check that. If I go to webprod.csproj, it's actually .NET 7.0. So I go back. I select Azure Web App for ASP.NET. Okay. I can actually see use this one, ASP.NET, build and test an app. Right, but I'm going to use this one. Okay, and it comes up with a number of things. I don't want to deploy this, so I'm going to remove this one. And then this is, so it's doing this, it's building, it's archiving, it's running some tests. I think you should run this test before archiving. So go down. Okay, no, build, run test assemblies, and then those, and then it's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select what project I want you to build. Then this, okay. Okay, archive. So zip that content for me. Bruce folder. So this is the one. I don't want you to build everything. I want you to build this web project. Okay, and then put it in chat here. And test assembly. I actually don't have any test, but it's fine. And publish. So I want to publish path to publish. So I want to publish what you actually have inside this web project, right? That's what I want. Okay, and then I'm going to save and queue this thing, and then let's hope it passes. If it passes, then we had a good day. Then we can now go and create our release pipeline. So let's see. So the pipeline is running. And if everything works correctly, so it's building our application now. It failed, yeah, because there's actually no .NET, whatever, inside there. So let's go back and check. Yeah, it doesn't have SLN. So let's edit that pipeline and see. It failed on this task, build solution. So we don't, our code doesn't have, doesn't have a distance. I'm going to disable that. This is what I'm saying. It doesn't have .sln. Except I add one. I can actually add one for .NET and then and use that, but there's no need because it's passing for now. So I'll just delete that. Let's see. All right, so, okay, so we have one artifact. So you can see once it finished running, if you look at it, you see artifact produce. And then if you look at the artifacts, you should see code. Then looks good. Looks like what we want. Okay. So let's go back and now create our release pipeline. So if I open that and then I click on release, and then I click on, I want to create a new release pipeline. So click on new release pipeline. And then, so now I want to deploy an app, right? I want to deploy an app service. So if you see the first one here, say apps, Azure App Service deployment, deploy your application to Azure App Service, choose web app on Windows, Linux, container, functional app, or web. So I'm going to select that one. Now we can call it, maybe it's our development environment. Okay, so it has changed. Now I go down here. Sorry, I go in here. So the first thing I want to do, I want to add an artifact. So I go to my artifacts. I select October. Remember, we just had one that just ran now, which I think this is the name, right? I click on add. Okay. And then I also want to add another artifact, but this time around, the artifact is coming from code. Which code? And October, which repository? October, which branch? Main. And then I'm going to select that. I'm going to show you why I'm doing that later. So when I come here, so this is to deploy the app, but I have a couple of problems I'm going to solve. The first thing is that the problem is that this app I want to deploy is going to ask me for the name of the app. Now, because the name is not yet existing on Azure, I only have the name in code, and the name of that one I want to deploy to is called, we are yet to create it, but I know the name. The name is this. So I can either pass the name in, all right, or first of all, create the web app and then later on come and pick the name. But I want to do the two of them at the same time. So what am I going to do? It's two things. I can pick the name from code, but that will need some bit of scripting. So I'm not going to do that for today. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pass the name of the app. So click on the deployment here, the name of the stage, right? Just all the things we need to fill. So first I need to select my subscription. I select that, and then it's a Windows app. So if it's the Linux one, you need to select the Linux one. So I want to deploy to Windows. Now, if I click the drop down here, it will only bring out the 3 apps I already have, right? But I know I don't want to deploy it into any of these 3. I want to deploy it into one I am yet to create. So I'll just paste that name. If I click the drop down, it's not existing among the drop down, but I am going to create it. So I put that name there. So how am I going to create it now? That's where we now use what we call another task, that is ARM. So if I type ARM, you see it here is ARM template deployment. So I select that. So because I want to create this thing before deploying, so I move the task up, right? So if I move it up, so the first thing it says is Azure Resource Template Deployment, right? I can rename this and say deploy templates. Deploy templates for first web app. Now, I actually want this one to get deployed first for me because this is where I want to deploy the app. Now, the second one, which is the Linux one, we don't want to deploy anything. I'm going to create that one after the deployment, just to show you guys that we are going to have 2 new apps that will be created. So I'm saying I'm going to use a resource deployment, and then I'm selecting this, and then what subscription? Select the subscription, which is this. Now, create or update resource group. Now, the only thing I don't have here is I don't have a resource group. So I'm going to call a new resource group. I'll say RG test ARM. Now, this is the ARM, sorry. So just to differentiate it, and then which region do I want to put it? So I'm going to put this one in, I'm going to put it in my region, West Europe. And then here I'm going to select the template. So which template do you want to use? I'll say I want to use. So this is where I'm selecting the template from. The template is inside. The template is not inside this one because I only passed the code from there. The template is inside the second artifact I added that came from Azure repos, right? So that's why I select. If I select it, I see IAC, and then I see that template.json. I add it. So I have selected a template following this thing here, right? Now it's asking me what is the parameters that you want to use for this template. Now, here's the beautiful thing about this thing. So I go back there. Which one is parameter 2, right? Which is this one, right? So it's parameter 2. So I select parameter 2. I click OK. Now, if I want to override the template parameters, let's assume I don't want this. I don't want this Olude that was passed. I don't want all these names here. And I also don't want Windows. I can also override it from this option. So what I'm going to do, I create, are you seeing those 3 values? Are you seeing that thing has gone to read that template, the parameter instead? And then I can override the value from here and give it whatever value I have. It will put it here, and then it will deploy that for me. All right. So if I check everything is good, I'm not overriding anything for now. So that is fine. Now, I also, because I want to prove something, I'm going to also create another task, which is another ARM deploy. This one now will now deploy that second app, but I want to deploy it after, I want to create that one after the first one has created and deployed. So the same thing, I'm just going to do the same thing, but this time around, we're going to resource group. So I'm going to give it a new resource group, RG, call it RG test Chemi Windows app. And then the location, I'll put it in, you are in London, so UK South, maybe. And then we'll select the template. So we go back there, we'll select the same template. The only thing that will change this time around is what? Who can tell me? If you're following. What will change here?
The template. Like the parameters where you have the names.
I'm deploying to
template 1.
Huh?
Select the template 1.
How many templates?
Sorry, parameter 1. Sorry, parameter 1.
Parameter 1 is for creating that. I'm showing you how to use one template, but different parameter files.
Parameter 1, yeah.
That's the idea. Do you guys follow? So it's the same template, but different parameters. So if I want to create another third app now, for instance, I create another parameter file. Do you get it?
Yes.
Or I could still have also used one parameter, but I'll just come here and override it. Do you get it? I could still have also used parameter 2 and then just come here and override it. Do you get it? Override the value. So whichever one I want to use, but it's fine. I'm using a different one. So I'm going to say deploy ARM template for second web app. So I'll rename that one. Say deploy ARM template for second app. All right. So I'm going to save this thing. If everything looks good, so this is our application where it is going to. So this is our app we are trying to deploy. We are deploying this app here from here. So it's going from our drop location. That's the app that we want to actually deploy. So what will happen now, I click on save. I save this thing and it's all good. I'm going to click on release. Now watch what will happen. While this thing is deploying, all right, it has actually started. Let's keep it open. Now, while it is running, I'm going to be switching here, and then I'll just keep an eye on the app service plans. Now, I should see 2 new app service plans. Right, I should see 2 new app service plans. And then if we go and check, we'll see that it has created 2 new web apps on top of those 2 app service plans. One of them is going to be Linux, one is going to be Windows. And then we'll see that, so it's deploying the first web app now. So if it's all good and fine, it's going to deploy the first web app. So deploying ARM template for first. Now, this first one is a Windows app, right? It's Windows. So let's see. So this is how you can actually use how you can actually use, so you can use it here. You see it deployed it West Europe. So I'm showing you how you can use ARM or infrastructure as code, whether it's Terraform or any other thing at all you use to create a resource as though it was code to actually create with a pipeline. Now it does not deploy the app yet, it's still 0. So if I refresh, you should still see that it has deployed that app. So let's go back to our pipeline. You see it's still running because, so instead of that thing you do from web app on the portal to click on this, if you create this thing once, it does, okay, it has finished creating that, and now it's trying to deploy the web app. So if I go back there, you should see, I should see this thing instead of 0, it should be 1. It's taking time, as well. Let me refresh the entire page. When you open it, I should see an app here. It's actually there. Not sure why it was not showing. And then you see it's running. So if I go back to the pipeline, you see it's deploying the second one now. So if we go back to where we were, you should see now that it's trying to deploy the second one. So it will also deploy another app service plan. Are you seeing one template deploying to app? So if I want to deploy 100 app service plans, it's just one code I can use. What I'll just do, I will override the template and then give it the name I want. And then you see at runtime, it creates it and uses the same value as well. So this is the beauty of using infrastructure as code, because you just write it once and then you reuse and reuse and reuse. Then the only thing you need to do is modify it to suit your use case. And then you see it has created that chemistry ASP, and we have a problem here because this is meant to be what? Linux, not Windows. So let's see why it created Windows instead of Linux. Because please, can you go on mute, the person playing piano? That thing is supposed to be a Linux app, but we'll check that. So, but the bottom line, let's check our pipeline. Everything ran successfully. Now let's go to that. If we go back here, you see what we said was deploy an app, deploy this app service for us on that first one. All right, so let's go to this app, this web app test, and see what happened there. So it should be inside of here. So let's click on apps and click on this guy, and then go and browse to that. So if we browse to this, what happened? Why is it saying blocked? So if everything looks correctly, it should actually show us that a web app was created. You do not have permissions to view this directory. All right. So let's go back there and yeah. So that's what we wanted to achieve. We created a pipeline to correctly build our application and then make a deployment. I think I need to modify something here. Yeah. So any questions? So I'm trying to run it again, just to be sure. Let's see if we can fix this thing but here, but it's not a problem. So do we think it's something we can do? So we can, or I'll ask us to quickly spin up our own, try to use any template of your choice, maybe try to deploy a storage, create a storage account, or try to create a virtual machine if you can, using ARM, and then create a pipeline to actually deploy that resource. Hello? Hello, my people. Are we here?
We are here, Mr. Chris.
A lot of persons have disappeared.
We are here.
That's That's
We are here.
I want us to try it. Mr. Henry.
Yeah, okay, Chris.
What's happening? Where are you?
I'm just here looking.
But this is something we all know very well now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hi,
So,
Chris.
yeah, hi.
So I want to suggest that if you can just guide somebody to, to start it, I'm guiding it, I'm guiding him or her. So, and I think that should be good. But because the way you are creating it now, you also is a teaching process. So you go from one thing to another thing. But if somebody is doing it now, okay, go here, go here, go here. That one is not a teaching. That just going straight to that creation of the app service and the deployment. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but this idea of, because I get what you're saying completely, but I want to know where the problem is, because if I'm guiding somebody The reason I want to do that is because somebody doesn't know how to go from point A to point B. So if that's the case, then I know where to start. But if what we are saying is that, oh, I don't understand that, or then I think it's a different case, right? But this is something I would say everybody here can do, because where you start from is create an ARM template first, right?
Yes.
And if you can, everybody here can do that, is it not? Then the second thing is creating a pipeline. Who here cannot create a pipeline? Do you get it? Everybody here can create a pipeline. So create the pipeline, and then the task you select to deploy the resource, and that's what I'm focusing on, is select ARM, and then use that ARM to pick your template and parameter file. Do you get it? So if we get to that point, I can walk somebody through, but not starting from, you get what I mean? Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll ask us now to quickly try that. You can create something simple. You can create something. The whole idea is I want to show us how we can try to create a resource without creating it on the portal. Just use a pipeline to deploy it. Do you understand? So storage account is the simplest. So can we all create a storage account, and then maybe I can now walk one person through to how to deploy that using a pipeline. I think let's do that.
Okay.
Is that okay? But that would be too simple though.
Are we creating the storage account through the CLI from the portal?
How is CLI or portal coming into here now? Are you following what we're discussing, sir?
So we'll be using VS Code now.
We are saying with ARM templates. What I've just done.
ARM templates. Okay.
ARM templates to create, just do ARM storage, create the storage, create a parameter for the storage name, right? And then let's use that. We'll now deploy that using a pipeline. Okay? Hope babies are not distracting you this evening, because I know those are your wonderful kids. They drag your laptop with you. Are we doing it? Is anybody done?
Mom, do you want chicken?
Mm.
It is at most which wishes you,
Is it
but no pepper.
boiling or what?
No.
They're frying.
Oof.
Oh, goodness.
You may not like it though.
Sugar is not pepper.
No pepper, no pepper. Just
So I'll give us the next 10 minutes to see if we can create an ARM template, at least then push it to create a new repository on Azure Repos and then push it there. Then we can take it from there. Or maybe the next 17 minutes. Are we done? Anyone up to some good position with that? Okay, 3 more minutes. Right. So where are we? Anyone want to share his screen? Maybe we can walk through. All right, since nobody wants to share, I believe we are all fine. So I'm going to drop this in the chats quickly. Yeah, this is something I want us to try to try this out. It's basically deploying a Java-based application, a Java-based Tomcat application, actually. Using Azure DevOps. Right, so please try it on your own. And then let's see if we can do this by tomorrow. We'll do that together. So we'll try it between now and then to see if you can, something you can actually do on your own. So I want to give us some minutes back. And feel free to ask any question if you actually have between now and that tomorrow. So if you're done with this one we did earlier today, you can actually switch to this one and try to see if you can create this lab. it takes an application basically, and then you set up a web app, and then there's a database attached to that. So it's MySQL server. So please, when you create the server, please follow the instructions carefully. And once you're done, kindly delete the web app